Glenn Beck made some news this week in an interview with Megyn Kelly. Beck was perhaps the most controversial commentator on Fox News when he had a show here, and now he's having second thoughts.
When you think back on your time here, how will you remember it? How do you remember it now?
I remember it as an awful lot of fun, and that I made an awful lot of mistakes, and I wish I could go back and be more uniting in my language, because I think I played a role, unfortunately, in helping tear the country apart.
Joining us now here in Washington, David Zurwick, television and media critic for the Baltimore Sun, and in New York, Amy Holmes, who anchors the Hot List for Glenn Beck's organization, The Blaze. David Zurwick, is it a good thing that Glenn Beck has now admitted that he helped divide the country?
You know, at first when I saw it, I was seduced by Beck again. This is the impish Boy Scout Glenn Beck. And he's really an engaging person when he does that. I had to go back to the clips to remind myself of the darker Glenn Beck, and him admitting he made mistakes. Howie, it was, I could have been nicer. I wish I'd been nicer. I wish I had appreciated that people are more fragile. Please, honestly, I don't think it's a good thing, honestly, and I don't want him back in a mainstream venue like Fox. I really don't, where you had 1.8 million people every night listening to his craziness.
Well, he's got his own venue, The Blaze. And Amy, why is Glenn saying this now? It's been 2.5 years since he left Fox. Is he trying to soften his image a bit to help The Blaze?
You know, in fact, he's been having this conversation for quite some time. His viewers, his listeners, his readers, for them, this isn't anything new. It's not new for me. I've certainly been hearing Glenn talk about these themes of reconciliation, trying to find common ground. But I'm sorry that David isn't willing to take, you know, Glenn's remarks at face value and for the sincerity with which they were offered. We saw Piers Morgan over at CNN say that he appreciated and he applauded Glenn being willing to be self-critical and self-reflective in public, especially when you know a lot of his critics are going to use it as ammunition. We even saw Joe Scarborough on MSNBC applaud Glenn Beck, and Joe hasn't been historically a fan, but he can see here something that I think the rest of us wish, that the media was more self-critical and reflective on a number of issues.
Amy, you and Scarborough, Morgan, you're all in the game. I'm a critic from the outside.
It is certainly not a game for me, David.
You guys are in the television game. So, oh, yeah, he came on and he looked sincere. Now we're going to love him and embrace him again. No, I'm a critic from the outside. I'm supposed to write about what television does. Pardon, I'm sorry.
But he says because you appear on TV, are you in the game as
well?
No,
I'm a guy on the weekends who shows up when they invite me. Come on.
So then why are you accusing the rest of us?
Because I work as a critic outside the medium of television, writing about media and television. You guys make your living on television. Okay, so for you to say to me, oh, Piers Morgan liked him, I'm sorry you don't, David. Come on.
Amy?
Wow, well, clearly David is not a fan of Glenn Beck and isn't willing to even consider the opinions of Glenn's own critics, who saw, as I say, the sincerity of reflection. And nor, David, are you willing to accept that Glenn has been having this conversation for quite some time. This is not a new revelation for Glenn's listeners, watchers, or people who read his work.
I'm glad he's having it with his employees like you.
It's not employees,
you know, I
David,
don't want him having it on a mainstream media.
Audience.
He and Keith Olbermann were very bad for American television. I'm sorry. That doesn't change because he's nice to you.
We'll get to the broader question in just a moment. But Amy, talk about this continuing conversation. On his own show, after making those remarks to Megyn Kelly, Glenn said that he hasn't changed. And his critics, he says, are shocked because they think I'm some anti-gay racist nut job, his words.
Oh, I thought you were about to play a clip of that. Yeah, that was actually one of the things that really shocked me, was seeing that the media was accusing Glenn of things that he hasn't even said. And in fact, when it comes to gay issues, for example, he's been consistent on that. He actually, he advocated his solidarity with GLAAD when it came to Russia's discrimination against gay men and women. This is certainly something that I've heard Glenn discuss openly again publicly. David, you're suggesting that he only talks to his employees? No, in fact, he talks to millions of people every day
talking
get
about
to
this
hear
conversation,
what Glenn
Amy.
the
That's what I'm
conversation that
referring
Glenn is
to.
having.
Don't try
the
to change what I said.
You're changing what I said. The conversation that Glenn is having is with his public. He's been having this conversation for a very long time. It may come as a surprise to you because you don't follow his work, media critic that you are, but for the rest of the people
I do
who
follow his
Glenn
work.
Beck,
Actually, I
know
do
that he
follow.
has
No,
been
don't
talking
tell
about
me I
this
don't follow
for
his work,
quite
Amy. I
some
follow
time.
his work. And it's dangerous. I'm sorry.
All right, let me try to broaden this a little bit. And the thing that bothered me most that Beck said when he was at Fox was the business about calling President Obama racist and saying he has a deep-seated hatred of white people. But wasn't Beck doing a version of what many partisan commentators do, where all the rewards in cable news are to kind of be more outrageous so you get attention and ratings?
He and Keith Olbermann were two sides of the same coin. It was terrible. When those two went at each other, when he went at Van Jones with language right out of the McCarthy 50s, I'm not defending Van Jones or what he said, but the way that conversation, and then I will pay anybody who can bring me information. It was horrible, Howie. We can't just forget all of that stuff that went on in 2009, 2010, 2011 when he left Fox. Look, he is a remarkable broadcaster. And by the way, those things people said about him, I have said none of those things.
Okay.
Calling him a nut job or any of those things.
Let me come back to Amy. If Glenn Beck has been having this conversation with his audience for some time, maybe some of us are just tuning into it because of the remarks he made to Megyn Kelly, do you think this is changing his image, for lack of a better word, the way in which he's perceived, even by some who maybe were not big fans of Beck's?
Well, it certainly seems to be changing some of the perceptions of his critics, some of whom I just named. I'd like to get back to David's point, though. Do you not remember when the mainstream media actually asked the entire public to try to dig up dirt on Sarah Palin when every media organization went up to Alaska to
What has
comb
that got
through
to do
her
with
emails?
Glenn Beck?
You're accusing
Amy,
Glenn.
what has that got to do with Glenn Beck?
You were just accusing Glenn of asking his audience to participate in digging up information as if this was something new and sensational, when in fact the mainstream media does this to figures on the right all the time. And
Amy, what term is a mainstream media? I didn't do it. My paper didn't do it. Who's this mainstream media? You're talking like Sarah Palin now.
You don't remember the media going up to Alaska
Who?
for the release
Name the
of
people
Sarah.
who said that.
CNN went up there, Fox went up there, MSNBC went up there. It was a huge story. I mean, we had this conversation, Howie Kurtz, years ago when it happened, and you yourself pointed out that this was a witch hunt on the part of the mainstream media.
Got to wrap this up. It seems to me like we could have you guys back every week and keep the audience listening. David Zerwick, Amy Holmes, thanks very much. Coming up, television broke away to deal with the breaking news of Justin Bieber getting arrested, and later the fallout over some NFL trash talking.